Revibalize. Revibalize. This is Revibalize. This video? Oh, this video is Revibalize. 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 This is the world's first strand-type game. I'm talking, of course, about Death Stranding, the world's first strand-type game. This sentiment was memed on a lot when the game first came out. And I will admit that I was also susceptible to making fun of that which at the time I considered to be a pretty silly statement. But after having played the game, I do have to admit that Kojima was right. This game doesn't really fit into any other categories that we have. And as someone who's been playing games my entire life, this one just feels different. It doesn't just play differently, it feels different. Now, I'm actually playing this game for the first time in 2025, if you can believe it. And I'm actually mad that I didn't play it sooner. Because as I play this game, I swear I can literally feel myself becoming a better artist the more I play. And all this time I've waited to play the game, I'm looking back and I'm worried that I've deprived myself of all this artistic inspiration and creativity that I could have been using to improve upon my practice for all these years. But there's no time like the present. I feel like now is the perfect time for me to dive into the art and vibes of Death Stranding. And throughout this video, we're going to attempt to answer 3 questions. 1, why does this game feel so different? 2, how does Kojima achieve this and what might his process look like? And 3, is Hideo Kojima some kind of alien or perhaps some sort of advanced life form? And then of course, at the end of the video, I'll take what we've learned and attempt to recreate the vibes of Death Stranding in some way with the various tools at my disposal. So for anyone who's not super familiar with the game, I'll give you a very brief overview that's mostly spoiler free. Death Stranding takes place in a post-apocalyptic United States. But to call it post-apocalyptic honestly seems inadequate because the world that we see in Death Stranding hardly resembles anything we know in our world today. The physical and metaphysical realms have kind of converged in a weird way. And what remains of humanity is fractured and spread all throughout the continent. And as a porter in this post-apocalyptic world, it's your duty to unite the nation by creating strands and connecting these fragmented cities and clusters and like groups of survivors. And the story is super interesting and intriguing, but what really brings it to the next level for me is Kojima's persistent use of what I like to call flex moments. You know when you're consuming a piece of media, whether it's a book or a movie or a game or whatever, and something so crazy happens that you just have to put it down for a second and just look off into space and be like, whoa. I call them flex moments because after I'm hit with like 5 of these moments in a 30-second period, I start to think that Kojima's just flexing on us. Like he's just rubbing it in our face, like you'll never be this creative. Death Stranding is almost non-stop filled with flex moments. And when I say non-stop, I mean that. Like virtually every detail that emerges in this game is thought-provoking and bizarre and subversive in some way. From like the unbelievably creative plot elements to the dialogue to even like the characters' names. Everything about this I find intriguing. I'm like constantly trying to figure out what is happening here. I want to learn more about the characters. I want to learn more about their outfits. I want to learn more about everything that's happening in this bizarre world. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say like I am constantly pausing this game and just looking up and being like, that's fucking crazy. In many, many instances, this game operates in a way that you would never expect a game to operate. For example, when you're in your private room, which is like where you rest, you have the option to interact with the room in different ways. And one option you have is to examine the collectibles on the shelf behind you. And just like, look at this transition. That is some of the craziest shit I've ever seen. To just break the fourth wall so nonchalantly and with no pretext or like reason for doing so whatsoever is insane. When I saw this for the first time, I'm not even joking, I set my controller down in disbelief and I just like stared at my screen. And to me, this is just like pure creativity. Kojima and the team have taken effectively the simplest thing in the world, like a straight on camera transition, and they've turned it into something something incredibly memorable. I'm never gonna forget that. And this being a regular feature of the game, this onslaught of incredibly subversive and surprising things happening at all times, cultivates a deeply uncanny vibe. And I think this is because your brain doesn't ever really get a chance to recover from the last crazy thing it just saw. There's no compartmentalizing your memories here because there's something new and bizarre around every single corner. And these flex moments are important without a doubt, but they're also combined and intertwined beautifully with brilliant creative direction on Kojima's part. The world in Death Stranding is bizarre and beautiful and terrifying. It's familiar enough that you can recognize its humanity to a certain degree. But on the other hand, it's also totally strange and foreign. So not only is it uncanny, but it's also extremely isolating. I feel alone. There's an overwhelming sense of solitude in this game. It's just you and BB. But that solitude gives you time to think. It gives you time to take in that environment, in the strange sense of serenity you feel when it's just you, a fetus, and the open road. And that's just as American as it gets. But the serenity is always short-lived because wherever you go, there's an ever-present tension on your travels. Whether it's impending timefall threatening to ruin all your cargo, or mules trying to steal your cargo, there are always little reminders thrown at you just when you start to get too comfortable. And the contrast between serenity and tension is one of many examples of extreme juxtaposition in this game. There's of course the contrast between connection and isolation. It's ironic that the person tasked with connecting the country is probably the loneliest person in the world. The contrast between old and new, between life and death. It's a game that really thrives in exploring the gray area between supposed black and white concepts, where even something as obviously binary as life and death develops this extremely tangible middle ground that becomes a major plot point of the story. And to me, that's what a strand-type game is all about. It's about exploring these areas in between, but the strand is the real journey. It's what happens in between. When Donkey did his initial Death Stranding review, he was critical of how the only reward for completing some big expedition was like a massive exposition dump. But to me personally, this couldn't be further from my experience at all. The deliveries could be grueling for sure. They could be frustrating, they could be stressful, but through a genius use of environment, pacing, ambience, and of course, music, Kojima's really able to wordlessly express complex emotions in a way that I've never experienced in any form of media before. I'll give you an example. So earlier in the game, I had to make a return trip from a faraway outpost. I had no vehicle, no weapons, just like a towering pile of cargo on my back, basically. And on this journey, I had to make my way through an area swarming with BTs. And it's an intense moment. It's pouring rain, so your cargo is like slowly disintegrating. You're trying to navigate this sharp, rocky terrain with cargo piled all the way up on your back. And meanwhile, your bridge baby that's strapped to your chest is freaking out every time one of these things gets too close to you. But of course, I made my way through it, and as I got to safety, the sky started to clear. And as I got to safety and turned around to look at where I just came from, there's this beautiful inverted rainbow that had just appeared in the sky. And as I moved further into the clearing, this gorgeous song by Low Roar started playing. Suddenly, it felt like a tremendous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. And this is probably gonna sound lame and dramatic, but I actually started crying in real life. I thought it was just such a beautiful moment, and it so perfectly captured the human experience. And maybe it kind of mirrored how I felt in real life at the time. But I've never experienced something like that from a form of interactive media before. To bring a grown man to tears without a dramatic cutscene or a big exposition dump or even a single line of dialogue, I found that to be really special and unique. Now let's talk about Kojima's process a little bit. I have a theory, and this is totally unverified and it could be completely wrong, but I came up with this theory because this is something I do. I call it the magic notebook. And the magic notebook is basically just a jot pad for small, bizarre, creative ideas. Ideas that sound intriguing and cool, but they're isolated. They don't fit into any sort of overarching theme or story yet. Just small little ideas that you jot down in a notebook. For example, rain that rapidly ages everything it touches, a jacket with retractable spikes, a mask made from hands that can also hold a cigarette, an electronic communication device that's shaped like a handcuff and goes on your wrist. And your magic notebook has pages and pages of random, small, little cool ideas just like that. And then my theory is, once Kojima has like a pretty good idea for a project, like an overall narrative, a story, that's when you pull out the magic notebook and start incorporating all these random little ideas. So of course, I had to make a little animation of my own. I'm gonna show it to you right now, and while you're watching it, see if you can spot my flex moments. There's 5 in total. Did you see them? So the first flex moment was this laptop screen. I had an idea to have a laptop screen made of this mysterious tar that we always see in the Death Stranding games. And then the display would operate by having things emerge from out of the tar. The second flex moment was this skull appearing in my coffee foam. I actually came up with this idea because I noticed a bunch of interesting geometry in my coffee one morning and I took a picture of it. And I kind of got into this weird habit of examining these designs whenever I made a coffee. So the skull is actually a 3D model I made out of a bunch of metal balls in Blender. And then I brought them to life with this really interesting foam shape. Huge shout out to Bad Normals. I followed his tutorial actually on how to make this foam shader for my coffee. The third flex moment was these interesting windows I made. I had this idea of like, what if you had windows made up of 2 panes of glass, and in the middle, there was just a bunch of sand. And if you wanted to open the window, you would just drain the sand, which would expose the outside. And I just made this with a fluid simulation in Blender. Next was tar flooding the house from the sink and under the doors. And again, I made this with just another simple fluid simulation in both cases. Of course, there's the creature emerging from the tar. So this is sort of a flex moment that you frequently see in the Death Stranding games, and I really wanted to recreate that. And it turned out it was actually simpler than I expected. So I took this rigged Daz model and I just gave it a few simple animations in Blender, like really, really simple. And when you first watch the animation, you might totally miss him, but I think his subtle hand movements and like the way he emerges from the depths is just a nice little creepy touch. This is not a flex moment per se, but I did want to bring attention to it because I worked very hard on it and I think it looks cool. I made this Macintosh amplifier based on a setup I saw in Seoul at the 20th century printing press. Actually, you can see it in one of my earlier Vibe field trips. And it's such a beautiful amplifier. I became obsessed with it when I saw it and I just had to model it in this scene. Oh, also these are real pages from my notebook. Obviously this is a small thing, but I like to highlight the details because to me, the small details are kind of the most fun. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my third video. Fourth video, this is my fourth video. I know this one took a while to make, but to be honest, it was definitely a little bit more extensive than any of my past Revibalize videos. My personal life has also been a little hectic, and to be honest with you, there have been days in the past month or so when I just wasn't feeling the magic. But I'm trying to get back into it, and I hope that with these videos, I can keep inspiring people to create and look at art and different forms of media through a different creative lens. As always, my deepest thanks to everybody who made it this far in this video and left such nice and encouraging comments on my last and previous videos. I'm so grateful for that. And yeah, I think ultimately that's what made me come back and make this fourth video. So yeah, thanks so much again for watching. I love and appreciate all of you. And yeah, until next time, Revibalize. Revibalize. Revive.